We often hear many debates in today's pop culture, and we tend to find ourselves on one side or the other. Dogs or cats? MJ or LeBron? Were Ross and Rachel on a break? Did Oswald act alone? Did Epstein himself? There are so many arguments I could bring up, but the one I'd like to discuss today are what movies are better than the books they're based on.
You suck, you jackass!
Thanks so much for clicking on this video. For those of you who are new, my name is Chris, and I'm a jackass who loves movies but hates Hollywood. Naturally, I talk about movies and shows a lot, but occasionally I talk about other things. So like and subscribe if you want to see more videos in this vein or you like looking at this dumb face. Anyway, growing up a movie fanatic and an avid reader, I've always heard and I've even long held the belief that the book is a vastly superior product. Now, this is indeed the case for many or even most in iteration, but it's not so black and white. In this video, I'd like to discuss 8 movies that I think are better than the book. Now, let me preface by just saying these are just the movies that I have seen and read the book. So I'm sure there are many others who will chime in to let me know otherwise. Also, these rankings aren't necessarily in the order in which I think the movie is better. So they can be interchanged just depending on my mood. Also, and I want to make this abundantly clear, I do not think the Lord of the Rings trilogy is better in movie form. And those happen to be some of my favorite films ever. All right, so with that said, let's get started with the list, shall we? Number 8, Big Fish. I feel like Tim Burton is one of the most love him or hate him movie directors probably in the history of Hollywood. And I find humor in it because I feel like he's been this guy for as long as I can remember, and that sentiment just carries on to this day. Big Fish is one of my absolute favorite Tim Burton movies. It's beautiful, it utilizes CG effectively to enhance the production design, and it tells a terrific story that is at times a father-son story, a love story, and a story of a man's legacy. The performances are just fabulous, with Albert Finney stealing every scene he's in, and it really tugs at your heartstrings without being overly sappy. It's one of Burton's most enduring films as far as I'm concerned. So the book was written by Daniel Wallace, and honestly, it's not a bad book by any means. It's really short. And this is just one of those rare cases where the movie fleshed out more of what the book only touches on. While the book gives us a taste of Edward Bloom's tall tales, the movie brings them to life with more color than a circus clown's wardrobe. Burton's magical realism is cranked up to 11, giving us giants, witches, and a town so perfect it makes Disneyland look like a back alley. At the end of the day, the book is like a fishing trip, and the movie's like catching an 800-pound tuna with your bare hands. It's bigger, bolder, more fun, and more emotionally resonant. Number 7, Forrest Gump. Forrest Gump is one of the definitive pieces of American cinema, with easily one of the most likable and easy to root for characters in movie history. If Robert Zemeckis had stuck to the book's iteration, I'm not sure we would have the icon that exists today. That's the thing I take away. The book is vastly different from the movie. I'd even go out on a limb to say the book is a borderline train wreck. First of all, Tom Hanks absolutely nails it as Forrest. He brings this warmth and innocence to the character that just leaps off the screen. But the book's Forrest, he's a bit rougher around the edges. He's a little smarter and swears a whole lot more. The movie also streamlines the story, cutting out some of the book's weirder bits. For instance, Forrest becomes an astronaut and goes on a space mission with apes. Instead, we get a tighter, more emotionally resonant narrative that really hits home. And let's talk about those historical set pieces. The movie weaves Forrest through American history like a pro, creating some of the most iconic scenes in film. The book tries, but it can't match the visual impact of seeing Forrest in the thick of these moments. Then, of course, there's the supporting cast. Gary Sinise as Lieutenant Dan, Robin Wright as Jenny. They add layers to these characters that the book just can't match. I mean, there's also the aspect that some view Jenny as one of the best antagonists in film history, but that's something we should discuss in another video. Oh, also the soundtrack, it's basically a time machine to the 60s and 70s. The book can't give you Fortunate Son playing over Vietnam scenes, can it? Also, the scene when Forrest is talking to Jenny's grave at the end will render the world's toughest man into a blubbering mess. And the movie takes the heart of the book and amplifies it. It's funnier, more poignant, and way more memorable. Number 6, American Psycho. I'm sure this one will be up for debate, but for me, I prefer the movie to the book. Now, the Bret Easton Ellis book is terrific. I'm not denying that. It's funny and goes deeper than the movie, but I think it doesn't have near the same impact and isn't nearly as memorable. Speaking of depth, I actually think that is part of the issue with the book. It's infamous for going on very long stream of consciousness monologues about topics that aren't relevant and are very boring. At least they were to me. It's also much more gratuitous to the point that it becomes comical and reduces its effectiveness, unlike the movie. The Patrick Bateman character in the book doesn't effectively differentiate between eating an apple and eating human flesh. As Ellis himself has stated, the book can be quite annoying. I totally agree. The movie's shallower, which in this case is a good thing. It's a hell of a lot more fun. Plus, Christian Bale's performance is terrific, and the movie is one you can watch over and over again. Even though the book is one you should probably read multiple times to truly grasp it all, I was one and done with it. As for the movie, I've seen it like a million times by now. Number 5, The Silence of the Lambs. So this could potentially be another hot take because I think the book is great. What the movie is, though, is a masterclass on how to properly adapt a book verbatim. Seriously, so much of what happened in the book is translated to the screen. While Thomas Harris paints a terrific image of Hannibal Lecter, Anthony Hopkins asks the book version to hold his beer while he chews the scenery in what limited time he has in the film, crafting one of the most iconic movie villains of all time. The film also nails the pacing. It cuts through some of the book's more meandering parts and delivers a tight, suspenseful ride that'll have you on the edge of your seat. It's like the book went on a diet and came out looking like a Hollywood star. And also there's Jodie Foster as Clarice Starling. She brings vulnerability and determination to the role, which adds so much depth to the character in the book. Clarice is great, but Foster makes her unforgettable. The movie also cranks up the creep factor with its visuals. The basement scene, Buffalo Bill's night vision goggles. You can't get that kind of heart-pounding terror from words on a page. Plus, the film's dialogue is so quotable.
I ate his liver with some fava beans and a nice Chianti.
It just doesn't hit the same when you're reading it. Bottom line, while the book is a solid read, I know some people think it's very mid. The movie, though, is a cinematic feast that'll stick with you long after the credits roll. While I would say to definitely read the book, it just doesn't hold a candle to the movie. Number 4, Fight Club. I know, we're not supposed to talk about Fight Club, but I'm gonna make an exception for the sake of this video. First off, David Fincher's visual style is like a shot of adrenaline straight to your eyeballs. The gritty, stylized look of the film brings Chuck Palahniuk's world to life in a way that words on a page are just unable to match. It's like the difference between reading about a punch and actually feeling one. And then there's the cast. Edward Norton and Brad Pitt absolutely nail their roles, bringing a chemistry and intensity that just jumps off the screen. Let's not forget Helena Bonham Carter as Marla. She adds layers to the character that just weren't fleshed out in the book. The movie also streamlines the plot. If you've ever read a Palahniuk book, it has a certain tone and meanders in a certain way, and the movie was able to cut out some of the book's weirder tangents. Fat-stealing subplot to focus on the core themes. This is tighter, it's more focused, and it hits you right in the gut. Plus, the film's ending is way more impactful, I thought. The final scene with the buildings collapsing, spoiler, it's become iconic for a reason. The book's ending is good, but the movie's is unforgettable. Even Palahniuk himself has said the movie improved his work in some ways. He goes on record saying, quote, "I was sort of embarrassed of the book because the movie had streamlined the plot and made it so much more effective, and made connections that I had never thought to make." He also wasn't a big fan of the ticking bomb countdown near the end of the film, considering a trope, though he says he's grown to accept it over the years. When the author's given the film those type of props, you know it's done something right. Number 3, Jaws. Jaws is not only the perfect movie, but it's the perfect example of trimming all the fat to get the perfect cut of meat. The book's okay, but the movie absolutely blows it out of the water. The book is a story about adultery, hidden secrets, and midlife crisis. It's also a very cynical book in which human drama is really the main focus, whereas the movie's pretty much an A to Z adventure story, and it's one of my absolute favorite films that's just a timeless classic that you never get tired of watching. So Spielberg's visual storytelling is like nothing else. The opening scene with Chrissy is iconic for a reason. It's way more terrifying when you can actually see it. And let's be real, John Williams' iconic score adds a whole other level of tension that words on a page are just unable to match. Also, I thought the characters in the book aren't likable at all, and they pull some pretty shady shit in it. There's a whole subplot where Hooper has an affair with Brody's wife, Ellen, and there are also just a multitude of other subplots in this one. For example, one with the mayor wanting to keep the beaches open due to mafia pressure. The book is just less tense and less interesting. And don't even get me started on Quint. Robert Shaw's performance is legendary, giving us that chilling USS Indianapolis monologue that isn't even in the book. Plus, the movie's ending way more satisfying. That explosion is pure cinematic gold compared to the book's more, I guess, abrupt finish. Look, Benchley's novel's decent, but Spielberg took the raw material and turned it into a masterpiece that's been terrifying beachgoers for 50 years. Number 2, The Godfather. And what is considered one of the best movies of all time, knowing that it's based on a book, well, the book better damn well be amazing. And the book by Mario Puzo is indeed good, but it comes across as cheap pulp in my opinion. It's entertaining as hell, but it's a very long read. So what makes the movie better? First off, Coppola's visual storytelling is just... The book's great, but seeing Brando's Don Corleone or Pacino's Michael on screen, to me that's just next level stuff. The performances really bring the characters to life that you're just not able to match when reading. Then there's the pacing. Puzo's novel is a beast with tons of subplots and backstories. Coppola streamlined all that, giving us a tighter, more focused narrative that hits like a ton of bricks. It's like he took all the best parts of the book and cranked them up to 11. And now let's talk about the soundtrack. Nino Rota's score adds a whole new layer of emotion that you just can't get from reading. Try imagining the baptism scene without the music. You can't, right? Look, Puzo's novel is solid, no doubt, but Coppola took the raw material and just turned it into a cinematic masterpiece. He really kept the heart of the story, but elevated it to something truly epic. Even Puzo himself said the movie was better. I saw the movie first at least a handful of times before I ever read the book, and after I read the book, I thought it was a great companion piece, but I've never been intrigued to read it again. Number 1, No Country for Old Men. Now, this is one that's sure to ruffle some feathers because Cormac McCarthy is, I think, one of the greatest writers to ever live. The Road and Blood Meridian are two of the best books I think I've ever read in my life. And the No Country for Old Men book is absolutely phenomenal, but so is the movie. That said, the Coen brothers took McCarthy's already lean prose and distilled it into pure cinematic gold. They trimmed the fat, focusing more on the cat and mouse game between Moss, Chigurh, and Sheriff Bell, thus resulting in a tighter, more intense ride. The visual storytelling is really my rallying cry for this pick. McCarthy's words are phenomenal, but seeing the vast, unforgiving Texas landscape on screen, that's something else entirely. The Coens and cinematographer Roger Deakins, who was robbed at the Oscars, by the way, created a world that feels as dangerous as the characters inhabiting it. And let's talk about those characters. Javier Bardem's Anton Chigurh is the stuff of nightmares. Way more terrifying when you can actually see the dead-eye stare and that weird sociopathic haircut. Tommy Lee Jones brings a world-weary gravitas to Sheriff Bell that just leaps off the screen. The movie also nails the tone better than the book, I thought. That sense of creeping dread, the dark humor, the sudden bursts of violence, it all hits harder when you're watching it unfold as opposed to reading it in McCarthy's unique writing style. At times, the book feels almost like a screenplay for the movie, and other times the movie feels like it took moments from the book and made them more palatable. The Coens took that raw material and crafted something truly special with this movie. This could be more of a hot take, but I like the movie's more ambiguous and open to interpretation ending compared to the book. While both of these can be considered a masterpiece in their own right, the movie is one that I just prefer in this instance. So that's what I've got for you for this one. What are some movies that you think are better than the book they're based on? Do you agree or disagree with some or any of these picks? Let me know in the comments. If you liked what you watch here, let me know by giving the video a like, and hopefully a subscription is in order as well. I'm getting close to 10,000. As always, the opinions in this video are mine and mine alone, but what do I know? I'm but a mere jackass. I'll try to do better next time. Catch you later, friends.
That talks too much. I'm just a jackass of all trades. Don't know shit. I'll keep on talking, acting like I'm so legit. From politics to sports, I'm spout.